It's time for Around the Ozarks Sports Scene, brought to you by Fast Break Sports, the largest selection of cards and card supplies in Southwest Missouri. Now here's your host, Scott Puryear.
Welcome into another edition of Around the Ozarks Sports Scene. I am Scott Puryear. As always, thank you for listening. And today our special guest is the soon-to-be officially retired, but actually officially retired former head coach of the Missouri State baseball program, 42 years at the job, Mr. Keith Guttin. Keith, thanks for coming in.
Good to be with you, Scott.
Absolutely. So I said that in the intro because basically you are the head coach until June 30th. So have we cleaned out the office, the desk?
It's been a long process cleaning it out because, when you start 42 years ago, a lot of what you have is paper.
Yeah.
And I've been getting rid of paper for a few weeks now, and pictures are off the wall, desks are cleaned out, and June 30th it'll be official.
And you're still going in, you're still doing things that, do you ever ask, well, why am I going in today?
Well, out of habit. And, I'm trying to help. If Joey has questions about anything, I'm there for him. And, we're not leaving Springfield, Missouri, my wife and I, so we'll be here to support the Bears however we can. And
then, in terms of what goes on at this point in the summer for a staff, there's still 8 teams playing, but everybody else, what are they doing now? Is it recruiting or what goes on in June?
Yeah, recruiting is open again. This is a big time to get out, see tournaments. Guys are all over the country, and, it's warming up. The other thing is, there's a couple guys sitting in there on computers looking at the portal every minute of every day because that's become so prevalent in college recruiting in all sports.
Is it any different than going on like Amazon's site and shopping at night? It's the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah, except they don't list the phone numbers of the guys. You got to dig them up somewhere.
And you don't get your guy the next day.
No, and you can't have a return.
You can't have a return. Yeah, you can't send them back and get refund there. But so the process goes on. Have you figured out on June 30th what that's going to feel like on July 1?
Not really concerned, honestly.
Yeah.
I've had since when we announced this in November, the reason was to be transparent with our current players and for potential players and recruits so they knew what we thought was going to happen and did happen. We had the transition to Joey Hawkins, who I think will be terrific in that role. He played here. He was assistant here. He loves Missouri State. He's a really good teacher of the game, young guy with a lot of energy, so I think he'll be terrific. But we wanted people to know. That question kept getting asked, when are you going to retire? Let's get this guy the hell out of here. So I made it easy. I did it in November, and that allowed me to kind of prepare myself mentally for when it does officially happen.
When did you make the decision? When did you finally say, okay, 2024 is going to be it?
Early fall, late summer last year.
23.
Yeah, and we honestly, we thought we were going to be really good, and we weren't. And I wanted to enjoy that season, thought we were going to be good, thought I could still contribute to the team, and the results weren't what we thought, and it's time for me to go on.
What was the best retirement gift you got from all those stops?
Ooh, now I'll make somebody mad.
Yeah. You got a nice umbrella from Arkansas, didn't you? A couple fishing poles from Dave Van Horn.
I did.
Yeah, the umbrella was, of course, a little reference to that rain game, 2016?
It was a lot funnier since we won the game the following night. I don't think it would have been in particularly good taste had we not won the next day, but maybe they wouldn't have done it. Yeah, that was interesting in that, we're playing Arkansas midweek. You might even have been down there watching.
For the Wednesday game.
And and before the first game, they're like, hey, we want you to come out to home plate and get something. And the assistant AD, I can't recall his name at the time, but I know he was there during the rain game. He comes to get me, and the crowd's kind of already there because it's an Arkansas game. They're very passionate. And I said point blank to him, you're going to be walking next to me. Do you have a bulletproof vest on? He didn't even laugh. But Norm DeBryan was out there.
Yeah.
Of course, I've had a friendly relationship with Norm for years, coached his son. And Dave was out there. I don't know if Dave wanted to be out there, but he was out there. It was a nice gesture, actually, on their part, and I was surprised.
Have you figured out anything yet as to what's next? Are you just going to relax for a while, starting July 1? What have you? Anything cooking in the head right now?
Yeah, there's a few things there, Scott, but I'll take probably July off and then look for something part-time, certainly not full-time, where I can maybe keep my hand in the game, or certainly in athletics. I've been on a team starting with high school, put on a uniform every spring for 54 years. So that part will be different, but I'll be on the concourse watching the Bears. If it's cold, I'll be in the suite, which would be a lot better. But I'd like to do something of value athletically, but that remains to be seen what it's going to be.
And you still just refuse the notion and concept of taking up golf, correct?
No golf.
Why?
As I saw you play.
I mean,
I knew I couldn't be as good.
Thank you. You're the only former baseball player in the history of baseball who doesn't try to play golf.
I have tried. It was not pretty. Let's just stop there.
How long ago was that?
10 years, maybe 15.
Really?
When you pull a hamstring driving a ball, something's wrong. And that happened at our tournament at Millwood.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm a little tight on the flexibility.
Well, and of course, big news in the Ozarks this week was the announcement by Kyle Moats that he was stepping down as the director of athletics at Missouri State to assume the same role at Eastern Kentucky. Your thoughts on Kyle and your tenure, because you only had 2 ADs, didn't you, in your entire 42 years there? And then also, there'd be some questions. Is there any interest in you throwing your hat in the ring for an AD job?
Absolutely not on the second part.
Okay.
Kyle was there with us 15 years. He let us do our jobs. He didn't interfere. He didn't micromanage. He was supportive personally of me and the program. Coach Rowe is family to me. He recruited me as a player, recruited me as assistant, recruited me to be head coach. 27 years. We're literally like family. They're two different people.
Yeah.
And, Coach Rowe knew every season ticket holder, knew everybody's family, still does. And that's not the case with Kyle. Everybody's different. He had his strengths. We all have our weaknesses. And, I think the other thing, when we had a Zoom call yesterday, and Kyle got on, and some of the things he said about why I don't think he was just going anywhere. His son is on staff. There has been, I think, for years, maybe director of compliance. His daughter's husband, his son-in-law, who's a local young man from Nix, who I've met maybe once or twice as a baseball guide, I think he's going to get an opportunity over there in some capacity with their baseball program. So he'll have his kids, his grandkids, and it's a good place for him. Whenever you get a new president, you don't know how that relationship's going to be. He and Cliff Smart were personal friends. They work together. I heard Cliff on the radio yesterday talking about that relationship, but it's probably a good move for Kyle with the uncertainty of a new president.
And he came from Louisville, so I mean that Kentucky is familiar to him, that territory and stuff, and the whole family thing is probably the biggest key of that, I would think too.
Yeah, and I think people, when you're in a position of being in charge, you get criticized, whether it's a coach, a guy on the radio, an AD, and there's he got criticized. Now, having said that, I don't think we as an institution celebrated our achievements as well as we could have.
Sure.
Kyle was a pretty big advocate of mental health, of athletic training, of the academic center, all those things that really help the student athlete. I don't know that we sold that necessarily. The public doesn't buy that. They're interested wins and losses and having a good entertainment experience, which we've struggled in those areas somewhat lately, but he was a very strong advocate for the student athlete.
I have defended your program a lot on things I've done radio and the podcast.
Hard to defend it this year.
With the roster cap situation, which is a university-imposed Title IX related sanction or whatever you want to call it, based on the female-to-male ratio in the school. Was that in your eyes, is that a Moats thing? Is that a university thing? Can that change? Are you still going to have 30 guys, or could that even change?
Well, it's not a Kyle Moats thing.
Okay.
It comes from our legal department.
Sure.
And I think the only one that would have the capability of trying to change that prong would be the new president. And we'll see how that goes. Yeah. But it's an issue. There's no question. We don't like to talk about it publicly.
Yeah. Because it sounds like an excuse if you do, but it's for us to talk about.
And that's fine.
Yeah,
but I don't talk about it publicly. I'll talk about it publicly June 30th.
Yeah. I mean, when you have to go get Curry Sutherland and tell him to go pitch in an inning because he's the last pitcher you got left, because you got 30 guys and Arkansas's got 40, that's an issue. It's
a competitive disadvantage because not everyone stays healthy. Mm-hmm. Not everyone performs, and you run out of people at times. And it's a factor, can be in a practice situation with your number of catchers or pitchers. But, we just got to, we had the roster cap in 2017. We had it in 2015. Yeah. We went to Super Regionals. So
found a way, yeah.
Yeah, you stay healthy and guys perform, and nobody talks about it. But when your season isn't very good, like this one, and you run into situations with injuries, it comes up.
Out of curiosity, in 2003, how many did you carry then for the World Series team?
I don't think it was any more than 30.
Really? So yeah. It was about the same?
Maybe 31, 32. But
is that a number that's grown for the other schools? I mean, like the Arkansas and Oklahoma States, where were they back then? And now they're at 40 or so, aren't they?
Legally now, at the start of your first game in the spring, you're supposed to be at a maximum of 40.
Okay.
And that's where most Power 5 institutions, and I would say the majority of people in the Valley, are between 35 and 40. Sure, it's a plus, absolutely.
Well, I mean, you're part of the problem, too. You made 3 daughters. You're contributing to the...
They've all graduated from there.
The ratio problem is
this is the way I describe it. If you're looking for a wife...
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
This is a great place to be. If you're looking for a fourth catcher, not so great. Unless that's a female.
Yeah, unless it's a female. Yeah, exactly. So when you look back at it now, that all the games have been played, what's more amazing to you, that you did this for 42 years or that you stayed in the same place for 42 years?
Well, it's like any job. You go the next day and you do your job, and then you go home and you get up and do it again. I was never looking to leave. This is where I went to school. This is where I played. For 27 years, I had my coach as my boss. And there was no reason to. I've always said this publicly or privately. If you like where you're living and you like who you're working with, you better take a very, very hard look before you change those things. It's not worth a little extra money to do that and take a chance on being unhappy somewhere else. Not that they were knocking my door down every year. I had a few calls over the year, but nothing really materialized. But I was happy here.
Well, and it wasn't going to materialize unless mentally you were ready to at least go down that path and look at it. Did you ever even get close? Was there ever anything that actually kind of semi-intrigued you about maybe leaving and going to another challenge?
No.
Never? Well, never close?
No.
Yeah.
Never went to a different campus to interview. Did a couple phone calls that people reached out to me, and that was it.
See, that's just poor financial management on your part, because look at Danny Hurley. I mean, the Lakers messed with him.
Well, the Lakers did call me.
Yeah, and what's UConn going to counter with there? But I mean, Missouri State knew they had you, and you weren't going, right?
Well, I think the other thing now, with a lot of coaches at various levels, they don't do the negotiating themselves.
Yeah.
They have advisors, they have agents, and they kind of stay out of it. So, if there's a search committee looking, you've got the third party involved, the coach's name's not involved. I'm sure that's going on, at South Carolina, at, wherever, Long Beach State, maybe even Indiana State, because Coach Hanna's just left. But I was here. They'd call you in at the end of the year. They'd tell you you're back or you're... And then you come back, and that was about it.
How much more difficult is this job now in 2024 and 2025 for Joey than 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 30 years ago with transfer portal and NIL And is that part of, I mean, you're not a spring chicken anymore, so, I mean, age does factor into when it's time, but we see a lot of guys like Nick Saban and coaches that are doing it forever that basically say, I'm done. I mean, this isn't as fun anymore, the challenges, or is there something to that?
There wasn't one certain thing, Scott, like NIL, but I will tell you that I'm glad I'm not having to really deal with that as a coach going forward. Mm-hmm. The portal helped us more than it hurt us. We were able to get some really good players out of there the last few years. But it has changed significantly from when I started. Certainly, you changed in your car at Metter, and some people showed up, and it was all about winning. And now there's just so many other distractions and factors. You've got collectives and third parties calling your players, telling them to get in the portal.
Did that happen with you guys much or not?
Pardon me?
Did that happen with you guys much or not?
What's happened this year?
Has it? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
We had a freshman All-American that I'm sure his Twitter or something has probably rang a little bit. And how do you combat that?
Well, you are proactive, and we have been with him. And, Joey went over and met with his family, doing everything we can to help him succeed here on the field and off the field. And at this juncture, he's staying, but anything's possible the rest of the way. The portal's open till July 2. It's just a very different world.
You got to re-recruit your own guys.
Yeah, and part of that is, we're talking about Caden Bogenpool, came here, was recruited but not nationally, and played on a good summer team, was seen. Joey did a good job recruiting him. He came to camp. He came here. He got comfortable. They had a good relationship. He was his hitting coach. Got along very well with his teammates. Likes the campus, likes the people, likes Springfield. Now, $500,000, you might not like it so much, but right now I think the loyalty and the relationship and what we're trying to do to help him, we feel good about him staying.
John Calipari, obviously moved from Kentucky to Arkansas. And in this environment, he came out and said, I'm only going to sign 7 or 8, maybe 9 high-level guys. I want 3 or 4 guys on my roster that understand they're not here, to compete for minutes unless we have injuries. They're going to be good practice players. They're going to be a part of the moment. That's not a bad approach, is it?
I promise you that those extra guys are getting paid something.
Yeah.
They may not play.
They're not just not making what the other 7 or 8.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
I understand the reason behind it, but anymore there's so many with the NIL, with what's going to happen in the fall of 25 with the Power Fives, getting the settlement and being able to utilize another $20 million. The valley between the big boys and the not so big boys, it's just getting bigger. The divide is getting bigger and bigger. It's getting a lot harder to come in and coach at this level because you're essentially a junior college for some Power 5 programs. The NIL money out there, it's just a lot more challenging than it used to be.
Is it still possible for a mid-major team to do what you guys did in 2003 in 2024, 2025?
Well, Evansville was 1 game away from it. You can have a great older team. If you have great pitching, you can do it. It's harder.
Yeah.
You just don't have the bodies. Evansville's a private school. Don't know how that factors in. They had at least 35 players, but it's more expensive to go there. It can happen. ORU did it a year ago. They did it with a lot of portal guys. They had a ton of older guys. Notre Dame did it 2 years ago. I won't call them a non-Power 5, but they went in. They had graduate students. Evansville had 6 graduate students and 5 other seniors. Really good team.
Yeah.
A lot of respect for them. They did it. But that's what it's going to take, a team really that is older and that somehow can find the pitching.
Well, and SEMO this year. I mean, they beat Arkansas and knocked them out of their own regional. Was it 16 seniors and a freshman, Brooks Kettering?
Yeah, had a good year, and Brooks had a great year for them. Older team, and they made pitches in 1 game, and Andy Sawyers does a good job. I've known Andy for years. He was at Nebraska when we won up there in '03. But, yeah, it can happen. Baseball's different. The most important player on the field changes every game and can change every inning. If you got a guy that can get people out and you got older position players, they don't have to be great prospects. They just got to not make mistakes and know how to play. You can win.
How would you describe, and again, you're leaving, but the NIL situation at Missouri State, all sports, and then in baseball in particular?
Well, I think, candidly, it's probably still in its infancy to some degree. I know football has their own alliance, and they kind of handle their own thing. I'm sure Dana was fundraising himself for NIL. We are now in the mix in baseball. We're hopefully going to get somebody on board that will deal with this on a more permanent basis. Hopefully that will happen, within the next couple of months. But you have no choice. Yeah. You're in the game right now. If you want to be competitive in any way, shape, or form, you're in NIL.
What percentage of kids that you recruit now, and Joey may be able to answer this better, but bring it up?
I've never had one.
Yeah.
Ever. And I think it's coming up now more with the portal guys, and the high school guys don't have as much familiarity with it.
The portal guys are shopping themselves, aren't they?
Yeah, for some of them, that's why they got in.
Yeah.
And for others, they already had their deal done.
Yeah.
When they get in. Yeah. I mean, if you look at even the guys you watched on TV last weekend, or the guys that were in the regional at Fayetteville, there's a lot of guys from other schools that are playing major parts in these successes of these teams.
They can't suspend you for next season. So
the umpires?
No, the NCAA. Your thoughts on the NCAA and its role now in all this that's going on?
I don't know if they have one.
Yeah.
I think, 10 years from now, Scott, we might be sitting here with something other than the NCAA and the Power Fives in it, controlling their own fate, which for the most part they're doing right now. All the lawsuits that precipitated the NIL and the portal, I mean, they were tired of them, and they were going to go bankrupt unless they changed, and this is what we have now. I don't know how you can change back at this point. It would be great to get some guidelines in the usage of the NIL. I mean, it was put in to help reward your current players, and that certainly went away quick.
Yeah, very fast. Yeah, so basically a kid in today's game, a rising prospect in high school, probably needs his own hitting coach, pitching coach, and an attorney, right? Those three key people on his team. It's what we're coming to, isn't it?
And an Uber driver in case he goes out at night.
Exactly, yes, so they don't lose the NIL money. But big news about a month ago now with Missouri State announcing it was going to move to Conference USA starting in 25-26. Your thoughts on that move from a baseball perspective? What does it mean for the program, the Bears program?
Well, it means you're going to be flying more. Obviously New Mexico State, Delaware, Florida, International, I believe. I mean, these are flights. We don't have our private plane there, so, money's going to be the importance of private money, the importance of the ability to raise money institutionally and within each sport becomes more important. It's a good league for baseball, maybe a notch above the Valley. The Valley's top end is good, though. You saw Evansville was third in the regular season, Scott. They weren't first or second.
Yeah.
So that lets you know we had good teams. We've had good teams. We've had good players in this league for a long time. But people in the South tend to take college baseball more serious on campus and in the stands. So, I mean, it's going to be a challenge. We're going to need financial help to make it work.
And Dallas Baptist, La Tech were the two that got in this year. Warm weather league. I mean, you're going further south for everything. Is that going to be, I guess, a scheduling situation for the Bears? I mean, because you've always tried to go as far south as you can early on because you just can't play here. How will that affect scheduling, do you think, now? Because you're playing teams that are already in warm weather, right?
Well, you don't typically. You're not going to play till the 6th week of the season in
for
league.
Your conference. Yeah,
no, that's the Valley. I'm not even positive how many baseball playing schools. There may be 10.
But will they be ahead of a former Valley team in terms of because they've been able to be outside that whole time?
It helps,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah,
We're ahead of Minnesota.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the way it is. Can't change the weather. We do have a nice indoor place to practice, Bill Rowe Training Center. You do what you can, and like I said, you've got about 5 weeks to play before you start conference play.
Has that CUSA been a one-bid league for the most part? It was 2 this year, or does it kind of fluctuate?
I think it's been more than one for the most part. And, Dallas Baptist, that's their only Division I sport. They're very committed to baseball, had great tradition, great program. La Tech's very good. They have been for years. Been a perennial NCAA tournament team. But, Conference USA, they've had their changes, too, in terms of teams in and out of there. Mm-hmm. You know their history probably better than I do.
You look back 42 years, and, of course, your own personal stability there, run the program for 4 decades, but you never really had a lot of turnover in the assistant world. What did those guys mean to you that whole time? I mean, and what was it that allowed you to keep guys for so long?
Well, they liked Springfield.
Yeah.
They liked living here. I think, we had a great deal of success, not as much lately. And baseball is different. Guys aren't always looking around for their next job because there is some stability. And we were fortunate, Brent Thomas, 32 years, Paul Evans, 34. Those guys did a great job. Big part of all the successes when they were here. Nate Thompson was here, Matt Lawson, Joey.
Scott Berry.
Scott Berry, who I spent 3 days with in Hattiesburg this year.
Yeah, had a great career as a head coach at Southern Miss.
Terrific guy on and off the field. Ironically, the Saturday we were there was Scott Berry bobblehead day. And he was at the front gate passing them out.
His own bobblehead.
And I, in uniform, went up and got 4 from him.
Did you really? Yeah.
I've got a couple in my car right now. But
and of course, former Neosho guy. I knew him from my Mack County days. He was dog back then.
So he's a special assistant to somebody working part-time on that campus, shaking hands. And
really?
He could be the mayor of Hattiesburg. That guy's very well liked.
Is that something you would entertain part-time at Missouri
The mayor?
State? No, the mayor of Missouri
I saw
State.
where Ken McClure's got to go. It's his last year. But
I mean, that kind of the handshaking and part-time fundraising volunteer, is that something, a possibility in your mind?
The word volunteer is not in my mind in that regard.
That's true. Paid part-time assistant. I mean, Brent Dunn needs a caddy, doesn't he?
I don't like golf.
You don't like golf?
No.
I'm talking about a personal life fundraising caddy. I mean, you could be Batman and Robin, you and Dunn. That'd be a great combo. Are we not touching that one?
I'm interested in somehow staying in baseball if that opportunity exists with some organization.
Okay. Why Joey Hawkins? I know you had to play a part in him being your successor. What did you see in him, and how much of a part did you have? I mean, were they going to take your recommendation and run with it or not?
Well, I don't know if they were, but they did.
Yeah.
When I spoke to Kyle in October, and he knew my feelings, and he'd seen the success we'd had offensively since Joey had come back to Missouri State. Kyle was here when Joey was a player. He's a 2-time captain and leader, and he came back as an assistant. He wanted to be at Missouri State. He loves Missouri State. He's a very good teacher of baseball. He communicates extremely well with players. He's got recruiting connections far and wide, and I thought he was the perfect choice. And, he wants players that are going to love Missouri State, and like he did, and I think he's the perfect choice.
How desirable would that position have been in the coaching circles if it had actually opened up completely?
I think there'd be interest. I mean, I don't know what's happening at Indiana State. I don't know if you saw that, Scott Mitch-Hannes. That shocked me.
South Florida, right?
Yeah, that shocked me. He was a Sycamore. He played there, was an All-American, was an assistant, came back as head coach. I really don't know what went down, honestly, there. But
Terre Haute or Tampa, that may be part of it, right?
To retire, yeah.
How old a guy is he?
He's 57.
So he's got some time then.
Yeah, and he's at the peak of his career. They've had 2 terrific years, and I don't know what happened over there. A year ago, they won the regional and were to host the Super, and they didn't because of a conflict in Terre Haute. I don't know if that factored into anything in regard to him leaving, but he'll make South Florida better.
Now that you've had a little bit of time, and of course we're still only, about 3 weeks removed, any games that are going to stick out forever in your mind or moments? Of course, the ones that are going to pop up, obviously, are the 2003 March to the World Series and, winning that series at Ohio State to get there, and punch that ticket. And then Sapicki's home run game and the rain game in Fayetteville, things like that. Are those among the ones, and are there others that, you probably go back to even your early days in the 80s, don't you? Remember some of those?
Well, I remember the first one. It was actually against Indiana State at Metter Park.
Did you win it?
8-3.
Okay.
Yeah, we won. And
how many homers did Mahaffey hit in that one?
He didn't get there till 85.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Doc was junior in high school then.
Yeah.
I think there's certainly some beating Wichita at Wichita for the conference championship, and maybe 96 conference tournament championship was big because they had the spell on everybody in the league. So that was kind of getting over the hump, winning the tournament there the next year. I would tell you that, in all honesty, hosting the regional and winning it here in 15, to me, was a bigger thing than actually going to the World Series. Because we didn't win the World Series.
Yeah.
We won the regional. And you want to see your players celebrate. You want to see your fans and all the people that help get you there celebrate. And being able to do that here in 15 was probably the biggest highlight.
How many ejections did you have in 42 years?
I've had that question asked a lot the last few weeks.
Uh-huh.
I don't know.
You don't know?
More than one.
What would you estimate? How many?
I don't know.
Did you get double figures?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
Were there any that were undeserved?
Probably not.
Okay. Was there one in particular that you really got your money's worth and you're kind of proud of?
There's one I remember that I absolutely cannot repeat anything on this podcast.
Really?
Yeah, that would happen in...
You're retired. You can say anything you want.
I can't say those words.
Yeah, okay, not the words, but what was the situation? Where was it?
It was at Wichita.
Okay.
I think it was a regular season, and I got ejected, and I went into their clubhouse.
Yeah.
Okay. Which was on the third base side. It was their old clubhouse. It was a small locker room, and it was right off the dugouts. It was really a good place to be, and I think I got locked in.
Locked into their locker?
Yeah, that's what. Not a locker, but the locker room, and it was probably the players not wanting me to come out.
Yeah.
So those are kind of things you remember.
Wasn't there one that you couldn't climb over the fence? You couldn't get over
that
the
was
fence?
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, people seem to note that because I don't even remember.
Well, I think it was one of the guests we had on radio. Maybe was it Andrew Jefferson, maybe, or somebody.
Been. Yeah.
Or Brinkley, or somebody said that they looked over there.
As I told you, when you pull a hamstring hitting a golf ball, climbing over fences isn't your favorite thing to do. But I did. I'll tell you, I had an ejection in Oklahoma State in 22.
Uh-huh.
Have you been to their new stadium?
No, I heard it's fabulous.
It's on a par with Arkansas. It's incredible. But you have to enter as a team from the wagon gate in left center. Mm-hmm. When you come in for pregame, BP, and everything else, because the locker room's out in left center. So I got ejected, and you can't leave the field and go into the stands. You can't do it.
Yeah.
And I don't know where to go. And I'm looking around, and people are looking at me. I'm like, I got my hands up. I don't know. I can't. I'm not walking across the field to left center.
To go out the gate.
Yeah. They might not even let me out.
Yeah.
So finally, Josh.
You'd look really stupid if you're just standing out there by the gate,
right? Extra fielder. So finally, Josh Holliday sees my predicament and sends their manager over to get me. Uh-huh. So he gets me, and he takes me out, and I've got to take the walk of shame all the way. We're in the first base dugout, past the third base dugout, down the left field line where I exit. And their fans are not as bad as some other places, but there were a few of them that were saying goodbye to me.
And that was my next question is, was at Wichita your favorite road environment just for the I guess the animosity and the competitiveness and being on the other side.
Favorite's a strange word for that.
Yeah, that's maybe not the right word. But did you miss the rivalry with Gene after he got out?
It was different, I will tell you, and the fans were different.
Yeah,
actually,
that's where Mama Bear's name came from, wasn't it?
Yeah, she was not a favorite there.
Yeah,
I can remember one year I had to send our bus driver to sit with my family up there during a game because I was concerned that there would be words. And he did it.
Yeah.
And not to mention the fact that he was legally packing.
Oh, really?
Legally.
So he was prepared.
Yeah, and he would have done anything for him, but nothing happened. But, they got after us pretty good. That was a really good rivalry for a lot of years. And it's funny that I got a nice note from Brent Chemnitz, who's their pitching coach, well-known, did a great job with their pitchers, the other day about my retirement, which shocked me. It just kind of told me that, when you start out in this business at this level, you really don't like your opponents when you start out.
Yeah.
And after a while, you respect your opponents. And then near the end, you like your opponents.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the crux of our conversation there. And, you just you figure out they're trying to do the same thing you're trying to do.
I mean, what's to stop the Gene Stevens and Keith Guttin camps from firing up across the Midwest?
Well, his back and mine, for starters.
And your hamstring?
My hamstring. It's all tied in there together. So we went over there to play. I want to say it was 22. We hadn't played for years. Eric Wedge was the head coach at the time, who played against us, by the way, in '87. And before the game, here came Gene.
Really?
Yeah, he came over to say hello and talk about Wichita State. Yeah. And that was just Gene. That's who he is.
I know one thing you're going to miss dearly is the in-game interviews from the dugout on ESPN. Those are favorites of Keith Guttin, weren't they?
Well, you know what? They told me it was going to be 2 questions.
Yeah.
When they went to the third, I just dropped the headphones. I was done. They told me 2. They didn't keep their word. The first wasn't a question, or it was maybe just a statement.
Was this Oklahoma State?
No, it was Oregon State.
Oregon State, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, and because you always just look so thrilled to be doing that interview at that.
Well, they're foolish. I mean, they mean nothing. Nobody cares. The coaches don't want to do them. Yeah. The fans could care less. They're in the bathroom at the time, and I just don't see the purpose.
I read something this week.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I can't believe I did that. But I'm an OU fan, been a lifelong OU fan. I've kind of got caught up in the Patty Gasso and OU softball, what they've done, which is just
Her son played baseball for Bradley against
us. Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I saw a comment she made about like this group of seniors that just finished up won 4 national championships in 4 years. And when they got there, she was talking about that was kind of the start of some different things, even in softball, that they had girls like Jada Coleman that were very emotional, fiery, and that would draw a walk and slam the bat down and run to first. And Gasso was like, we're not going to do that. And then eventually she said, you know what? That's who they are. I guess I need to let them do that. And where I'm going with that is you spent 4 decades of teaching young men baseball and coaching them, and they had to change from the 80s to 2024, and I just think of Zach Stewart and the hair. If Zach Stewart walked in with that hairdo in 1982 or 84, that hairdo wouldn't have lasted, would it? You adapted to what
I had his dad in the 80s, and his dad didn't have that hair.
Didn't have that hair.
No, he had very short hair, but he wasn't as good a player as Zach.
Yeah, exactly.
I hope he's not listening.
Zach got to keep the hair because he hits home runs.
Well, the deal was this. Zach got the campus. You're not going to say anything. I didn't say anything to Ryan Howard about his earring till the first day when I took it from him.
Yeah.
So when Zach Stewart got the campus, I said, Zach, about like this. You like your hair? He goes, yeah, Coach, I like it. I do. I go, I'll tell you what. You hit, you keep your hair.
Yeah. Nice.
And he did his part.
But you adapted. I mean, you had to adapt. And was that hard for you because of just the Keith Guttin in the 80s and looking at the Keith Guttin in the early 2020s? Are they different coaches?
Oh, the world is different.
Yeah.
And you better adapt. And, guys still work hard. They work hard in practice. They work hard in the weight room. They play hard. The only thing I would say that I kind of sense is different. In some cases, they're playing for themselves first before the team, and it didn't used to be that way. And again, these guys work as hard as anybody. We ask more of them, but sometimes I think the way society is now and how sports are at a young age, it's you want to be recruited at a very young age. It's about me as opposed to about the team, and you're trying to sift through that and certainly find a lot of guys that are about the team first.
So what are you going to do the month of July? I mean, do you mow? Do you mow your yard?
We live in a retirement community, Scott, and they mow it.
So they mow it for you. So that's out. That that's one way you could have killed 30 to 45 minutes. Grandkids, are we going to spend more time with Mama Bear and the grandkids?
Yeah, and already have, and they're within driving distance.
Where are they now?
We have family in Bentonville, and we have family in Overland Park. So we're kind of in the middle, which is one of the reasons why we're staying.
And what's the breakdown on male, female among the grandkids?
All male.
All male.
All male, but we have another one on the way, and we'll find out June 23rd if we'll continue all male.
Congratulations. And
thank you.
Are you a grandpa baseball coach with the young ones yet?
We'll see.
How old?
I think the oldest one, my goal for him is the Ivy League, not playing.
Yeah.
Maybe golf.
Or director of NIL in 2035, something right? Yeah.
The younger one, he's not going to be tall. I don't know if he's going to be fast, but he will run into something.
That's great. Well, Keith, enjoyed our time together. You know, it started back in 85, 86 when they sent me out to Meadow Park, and you scared the hell out of me when I first talked to you. You know, then I got to know you and figured out what you were all about, and it's been a great time with you for 4 decades. You've been a great friend, and congratulations on a great career.
Appreciate it. Good being with you, Scott. Appreciate what you did when you had Missouri State for coverage.
Thank you. Wrapping up this week's podcast with our Scott's Thoughts segment. Of course, it's my thoughts and musings and ramblings on the things in the world of sports that have popped up here of recent. Of course, big topic this week was the resignation of Kyle Motes as Missouri State Athletic Director to take the same position at Eastern Kentucky. 15 years for Kyle Motes at Missouri State. People ask me to evaluate what he did. I think he was a good AD. Yeah, I mean, was he great? Probably not. Was he awful? No. There were no controversies. There were some questionable hires here and there, but that happens with any director of athletics because when you're at Missouri State's level and the financial situations are different, you got to take chances. And he did. Some of them panned out, some didn't. All the Lady Bear hires seemed to work very well as they moved on to great situations. And, of course, our guest today, Keith Guttin, as he said, they let baseball do their thing and left them alone. Football is still a work in progress. I think Ryan Beard is a great guy to run that program and take it into CUSA. So just wishing Kyle Motes the best. I think, as I said in the podcast with him and on Twitter this week, I think his biggest crime was he was not Bill Rowe. I mean, he was the Gene Bartow to John Wooden following a legend and different personalities, and that's okay because that's the way people are made. So congratulations to Kyle Motes on the new gig and wish him the best with that. Another local story of late was the announcement that Trevin Brazil, the former Parkview and Kickapoo basketball standout who started his career at Mizzou and then went to Arkansas for 2 seasons, had put his name into the NBA draft pool, has pulled that back out and went into the transfer portal, but ultimately decided to go back to Arkansas and play for John Calipari there, the former Kentucky coach that's with the Hogs now. I think it's a great move for Trevin. He took a lot of heat from an Arkansas fan base that's bordering on psychotic at times, but a lot of people forget that this is a kid that blew out his ACL and had reconstructive surgery a year earlier before this past season, and don't see a lot of kids that come back full strength, especially when you're long and lanky and 6'10", and you got to trust those knees to do what they once did. So I think it's great for Trevin to play for a guy who is known to send guys to the NBA and develop their skills, and hopefully it'll be a good winter for Trevin as well. Finally, it's a big week for me. Of course, Father's Day, and happy Father's Day to all the dads out there, but it's U.S. Open week, and there's no better golf watching than a U.S. Open Sunday. Cannot bet against Scotty Scheffler right now. He is basically the new Tiger Woods in terms of must-see TV and a guy that basically every week is going to be the favorite right now. Short of an over-aggressive cop at the entrance gates, keeping him from getting into Pinehurst number 2, Scotty will be the guy to beat in that field on a course that's very long with very small greens, and he fits both categories to be able to conquer that. One note about this week, it is a reminder of our late, great former golfing star Payne Stewart. It was Pinehurst number 2 where Payne won his last major championship back in 1999. 25 years ago, before, of course, the tragic plane crash later that year took his life. Hard almost to fathom that Payne Stewart would be 67 years old this year. My guess is if he were still here, he'd still be going down to the U.S. Open to Pinehurst thinking he could play with the young pups down there, because that's the kind of guy that Payne was. Thanks a lot to our sponsor, Fast Break Sports. We appreciate their sponsorship. And, of course, if you need anything, sports cards, collectibles, memorabilia for that fan cave for prepare for football season, visit Fast Break Sports. They're just south of the Battlefield Campbell intersection there. You see the Burger King, go down to the next strip mall, and you'll see Fast Break Sports. Go see the guys there and get all your needs and equipment for sports card collecting. That's going to do it this week. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week on Around the Ozarks Sports.